JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing on Sunday, Monday, March 17th, 321. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Talk quick about the market, some names I'm looking at. Go from there. S&P is up, well, SPY's up about 1%. NASDAQ, do I have all of them up here? Small caps up 1.337%. And the NASDAQ up barely 1%. Well, I say barely, but underperforming. Uh, Ironically enough, well, I would say ironically enough, but um, you take a look at the Mag 7 stocks and they're all either flat, slightly red, or slightly green. Nothing major. So all this um, bearish talk around the lack of breadth in the Magnificent Seven leading the charge for the last 2 years and then some. A rally like today, maybe a change of the guard. I don't know. So I mean, it's just still kind of early innings, right? I mean, this doesn't happen often. Um, but yeah, to see it, and then also, I mean, you take a look at, I mean, Tesla, right? Now, I mean, it was all the way down to 232 this morning. So despite that, the markets are finding a bid. You know, you can also chalk some of that up to the oversold conditions we're in. A lot of these names, I mean, just beaten to death, and passive money, right? You got the funds, the pension funds, the 401ks, the hedge funds, all this passive money goes to work, regardless if the market's going down, up, or whatever, unless there's serious World War III or whatever. So it's always some of it. So I always keep that in the back of my head. Anyway, so take a look at the market, the SPY. I mean, who would have thunk it? The 200-day moving average right there at 570.60 on the SPY, and we're at 568.47. I mean, this morning we were chopping around about 9 o'clock. I mean, 9:30 out of the open, then we spiked up, then we were chopping around down to 1 o'clock, and then we just took off up into the right, right? Um, and that's also, so you look around the headlines, kind of complicated. I always look at Market Watch because it kind of gives you like I wouldn't call it a bizarro, like do the opposite of what's on there, but some of the the headlines are just, it's just comical. It says stocks build on Friday bounce after retail sales disappoint, but show consumers aren't falling apart, right? So they just twist the headline to make the narrative, right? If the markets had fallen, they just would have said stocks fell after retail sales disappoint. So that's funny. And then and then as I'm looking at that, it says Reddit has soared 170% since IPO. Here's why the honeymoon may be over. And then when it looks like there was this news out before with Google. I mean, that one's been destroyed too. So some of that's again a function of being oversold. But interesting stuff nonetheless. I thought 570 or so. I put that on the watch list this week. I mean, it looks like me. I mean, we still got 36 minutes to the close. I don't know if we'll get there today, but maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. I'd almost prefer to see a smaller move, but again, oversold conditions. We have the pincher set up. Uh, I'm not going to rule out more downside. Actually, it's probably more probable that we hit more lows at some point in the next month or two as opposed to more highs. But uh, again, I'm not going to rule out either side. I'm going to trade, kind of keep things small when I feel a little more conviction in a move like the bounce, getting the calls last week into this week. I'll probably continue to do that. And when I feel a little concerned, I'll start locking things in and keep getting spec hedge puts too. I'll break support. But for me, I put it 552 is kind of like that line in the sand. If we do get a reversal at some point in the next couple days or weeks, 563 was that big spot from October, or back above that. Now you start looking at the 200-day moving average, and that's up near 570. And then from there, it's for 582s. And I keep saying I draw these lines, these little funny support resistance lines on the charts, and they're not the be all end all for all my technical analysis. Like, I don't pretend to be this great technician of the markets, but to me, it's the chart is just a history lesson in supply and demand, right? So those lines, not saying they always work out, but they tend to be a decent guideline, like a guide rails, right? So uh, anyway, so those are kind of the areas I'll be watching. 570 tomorrow. And then we have the Fed on Wednesday. You just hope Fed Chair Powell doesn't put his foot in his mouth. We kind of get a little, uh, he can give it a little dovish spin, and go from there. And it also on the Fed, they don't want to be in a corner. They don't want to. You don't want them to paint themselves in a corner, right? So not too dovish. We saw what happened with the inflation situation. It's only a couple of years ago when they were saying inflation was going to be transitory, and that was before it really exploded. And thankfully, the Fed was aggressive raising the rates, but it caused hiccups in the market. It would have been a heck of a lot worse if they didn't address it right away. But now I think it would be in the worst situation. Well, not even worse, but they'd be in a much worse situation if they had been more aggressive cutting rates. So hopefully, you can spin it, walk the tightrope. Markets continue to bounce, and we have a decent week. So that's that. Also, the GDP Fed now out of Atlanta came out, upticked a little bit up down. Now they expect GDP for the first quarter to be negative 2.1%. That's down. That's up, excuse me, from negative 2.4% and from 2.8% the previous read. That kind of shocked everybody. There's going to be another update tomorrow. We'll see where that goes. Maybe this is again one of those anomalies, right? Some data points that got everybody all freaked out, calling the R word, and maybe it's just going to be dust that's swept under the carpet in the coming weeks, and then when the GDP read comes out, it's going to be like a non-event. But anyway, so that's overall markets, just some individual names, and sure enough, been waiting for BIDU to break over 100. I was doing my rant this morning. I'm like, if it breaks 95.75, maybe it gets 100 this week. And it was over 100 after the noon hour. I mean, all the way up to 102.85. Some of it, I've been talking about the rants for the last couple of weeks anyway. This, I wouldn't call it dislocation between the U.S. markets and Europe and Asia, or decoupling, whatever you want to call it. It just seems like it's time, right? And it was only a matter of time before some of these China ADRs that have been beat to death. I mean, BABA it's always looked like when it was under $100 and $80 over the years, you'd be like, wow, it's a monster. Huge dividend, huge buybacks, cash hoard, huge growth, all that stuff. And their hands are in everything. And now, you were like, how is it not trading higher? Now it's starting to be valued somewhat properly. And they have that spin-off, right? Or that IPO they want to do. Of course, I'm having a brain fart, so I can't remember the name of that. All right, so that's Baidu. Great. So I was actually looking at the 105s to add because I was looking for more strikes once it broke 95.75. And those were like 48 cents, 50 cents. I'm like, I'll just hold my 110s because if it does break 97.50 and then into 100 this week, those will pay. Little did I know was going to happen today, and those are up 400% from that entry. But I'm holding the calls too, so there's risk, right? So if I got the 105s with my 110s, now I'm holding more risk. If we do get some kind of reversal or move, it's not the type of environment to be overly aggressive getting calls. Although obviously it pays if you get it right, but it always pays if you get it right. But you lose more. So this is so the 110s, they were a double, closed some out for close to a double, then some for over a double, and they were almost a buck before. They were over $1, then bouncing around. But I'm just going to hold those. Who knows what happened to actually 84 cents now. The overnight session, you've seen some volatile moves, especially in the China names. So if there's a gap and run, I'll close a couple more out, and then I'll just ride the rest because I think they can catch fire. And I think this theme with China is it's like the early stages. So, all right, so that's Baidu. So that's an awesome one today. Great way to start the week. And then Intel, I got those 26 calls last week. I'm like, I think it carries up near 26. The stock was in the 23s when I got the calls. Consolidates the gap on Friday. I was a little disappointed. And then follow through here today. There's reports out that the new CEO has some plans that I guess the investors find bullish, right? So we're cutting some staff and doing some other things. One of those things doesn't look like it includes is spinning off assets. Who knows? I thought it was going to run anyway. Here it is up, got over 26 earlier. And it's sitting here around 25. I didn't want to be in a spot where I lose the profits on the call, so I locked some out for near 100% in the morning, and then just earlier I closed some more out for over 100%. I'll just hold the rest. 27 is probably the spot. I mean, they expired Friday, so I don't want to be in a position where there's the downgrade or whatever, and then the profits just completely disappear. So that'll probably be the stop, the limit, and I'll close them out, and then possibly revisit. Maybe I was looking at April 30s. They looked interesting too, but it's a huge move today. Premiums are elevated, so maybe I'll wait for some premiums to come out. And that brings me to XYZ. So in the morning, we were getting some chopped. We start to reverse. Almost looked like the 563 handle was going to come into play. My XYZ calls, which are solidly in the green, all of a sudden there was a little pull. The premiums weren't going up as nearly as much as I thought they should have as it was going higher. And then when we got the little dip, the premiums just got destroyed. So I didn't want to be in a spot where I lost money on the calls. So I closed them out for a small gain. And then I was actually looking at 63s. I think they were 17 cents when I was looking at them. And then I passed. It just, you know what? I don't want to be overly aggressive. I think Square could trade up into the 60s, but the 63 is at 23 by 27. And that was when it was at 58 and change. So I don't know if there's something not correct with the premiums on the block calls, but I don't know if I'll get anything to the end of the day. But I'm not going to cry over the spilled milk. Still has a pitcher setting up. Uh, yeah, so I'm not gonna kick myself for exiting. That's kind of the rationale behind closing those out. But maybe I'll revisit tomorrow, depending on what the market looks like. VKTX disappointing. Actually, it was just over 31 into the late, just past 2 o'clock. Big call volume. I think 27,000 plus calls traded today. Only 2,000 puts. Big strikes on the April 35, April 40s. Looks like some kind of spread. I don't know if they sold the 35s to, I mean, the 40s to finance some 35s. The thing is, the volume on the 35 and 40s for April is more than the open interest. So something's open. We'll find out tomorrow. Was hoping it was going to do a little push on the stock. Didn't do much. What has happened is the premiums are getting demolished. Just I think some of it there's some buyout premium, right? I think every weekend, as we're heading into the new week, no buyout over the weekend takes some of the helium out of the balloon. So still like this one. I mean, it might still close green, and green would be fourth session in a row. Right near that 50-day moving average, 32 and change. So I'll continue to hold my strikes, obviously, and then if I see another opportunity, I might add some more positions. Just other names today, and Trip I haven't really talked about too much. The story really hasn't changed. Having a nice day here, and like maybe you can make the case for a bottom. They announced a new leadership in their Viator, I think that's to pronounce it, segment, which is their big money revenue driving, profit driving segment, which is growing leaps and bounds. One of those people that they added to their to the team is from Booking.com. So not going to do any M&A things from that, but I just think that bodes well. Some of the reason why it's probably doing well here today. Not going to add any calls, but definitely story hasn't changed for me. I still think it trades over 20 in the coming months. Definitely I'll revisit that. TKO, I mean, I've been talking about it the last few days. I mean, it's not over Friday's, Thursday's high. It's actually right there. I think it was 144 and change on Friday. Let's see. And it's 145 and change here. I would have to go pull that up. But I don't want to be lulled into this and then see a pullback tomorrow. So I'll just maybe I'll wait for two green sessions before I look to get some strikes, but still like this one for a bounce. And then some other names I'm looking for bounces. URI, the longer the base, the higher in space. It's just still chopping here, pretty much flat here today. So still watching that one for possible calls. Oh, and then Redfin. So I mean, this looks like there might be another offer coming in. So I I mean, you see the gap, and it just keeps you. I mean, some of it is a function of the price, right? So Rocket is going to acquire Redfin, and some of it's not an all cash deal; it's shares. So when the share price of the acquiring company fluctuates, obviously that impacts the buyout price. So typically to the negative side, right? Uh, but I think it's being favorably received by the investment community, and so I don't, if Rocket really continues to go this week, does that mean Redfin could be 13, 14, 15? There might be some kind of like arbitrage play that you can make, right? Even despite the fact it's a 12.50 buyout. So I still have my 12 strikes. Hopefully those come back into the green, which is possible. And hopefully it keeps going. If Rocket keeps going, it's up 6.5% today. Maybe, 16, 15, $17. What does that look like for Redfin? Does that make it 13.50, So that's that. Other names, URI, Caterpillar. The financials are kind of struggling in the morning, and then those came back to life. So maybe it's a good sign. And then again, I'm always trying to keep an optimistic view, or at least have a glass half full scenario, or just some silver linings with the market. The fact that we're holding up here with the Magnificent Seven, and Tesla's just not doing anything really much today, I think that bodes well. So anyway, folks, but at the same token, again, I always say I don't put my bear suit on. I'm not putting my bull horns on. I think we get to the 570s this week, then reevaluate. Maybe up to 582 would be a good spot, and then maybe there's going to be some more chop because until we get certainty with the tariffs, and I don't know if we'll ever get full on certainty, but I think if there's more negotiations and they can roll back some of the tariffs, so it's not a huge blanket. And then we can get more idea of what that looks like. Maybe that will remove some of the overhang, but I think until that happens, the market's gonna be choppy. Anyway, let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back rock and roll.